Tenako. I would like to continue on from our previous video in terms of thought processes. People often say to me, he freaks me out, or she drives me crazy, or that thing happened, or that situation happened, and I'll just never get over that. It is important for us to realize that the fact that we think people, places, situations, circumstances can make us feel anything is a common misperception. In fact, we all grow up with it. You know, if you just imagine going to school as a little one and coming home and maybe saying to your mum that, you know, the day was terrible, teacher ignored me, and maybe there's a response from mum that says, you know, some days are like that, and some people and some things can just plainly upset us, and that's how it is. And you know, we all grow up thinking that the external event can make us feel what we feel, not realizing that yes, there's a stimulus and there's a response. And I'm thinking of Viktor Frankl's quote, and of course I'm paraphrasing, that said, between the stimulus and the response, all our power or our freedom lies. And so, of course, there's a stimulus, and we don't happen to just feel or respond however we do. But if we notice really carefully, between the stimulus and the response, there's a certain position that we take. There's a certain perspective. There's a certain thinking about what just happened or what we've experienced. Now, it is that thinking about the thing that had just happened that is causing what we feel. So we often talk about this in relationship counseling, where should we become aware of that middle part, of that bit between stimulus and response, and we take a breath and we notice our thinking and we choose the story that we want to go with, then the response, or maybe the reaction, can be so different. So let's think of this metaphor. Let's say there's two streams or two lanes. In the first stream, we have all the day-to-day stuff, everything that happens during the day. You wake up, you get a coffee, you get ready for work, you get to work, it's the usual stuff at work, you go home, family at home, blah, 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 all that normal, what happens during your day. Let's say in that parallel stream, we have our perspective towards that first stream. So everything that I think about the things in the first stream. So for example, waking up and going, oh, it's too early. I'm tired. I'm still tired. I don't want to wake up now. To go into, oh, my coffee is cold. How did this happen? To, oh man, the muesli is finished. Oh, this house, can we not get this right? To arriving at work and perhaps going, why do I work with so-and-so? Or why is so-and-so acting that way? Or, oh, I'm still doing this job. What's wrong with me? Or I'm just making this stuff up. But you get the point that the second lane is all the positions that we take towards all the things that's happening in the first lane. And yes, it's not necessarily negative. You know, you might jump out of bed and go, woohoo, it's a new day. Now, this is again the point. If we look at the perspectives that we take in that second lane towards the first lane, what do we end up feeling? If I kind of go, oh, my coffee is cold, where's the muesli, can't we ever get this right? How I'm going to feel is probably not so happy. So again, as we said before, living the experience of our thinking, but really underlining in this video that external to us, external events cannot make us feel anything. How we view that and how we think about that determines what we feel. And sometimes I think about going even as far as thinking about a funeral. You know, some people at a funeral will be completely heartbroken, of course, having lost somebody and thinking about the fact that they're going to miss that person and all the thinking that we do in terms of that. Somebody else might be thinking, I am happy for this person having passed on, because now at least he or she is free from the pain and the suffering they've experienced. And that person might not be as heartbroken as the first person. Now that's just to pick some example. Of course, there's very many examples that we can think of. I'm thinking again in relationships, how we feel that people can push our buttons. And of course, with what we're saying, if nobody can make us feel anything, then somebody can't push our buttons unless, of course, we allow that. But do we always notice that? Do we notice that we have a choice whether we're going to take something very personally in a relationship or not? So maybe just thinking about that one. We give our personal power away when we believe that people can push our buttons at will, when we believe that we do not have control over whether somebody's going to upset us or not. Let's try that next time. Let's notice in a relationship context how we feel in terms of somebody saying or doing a certain thing, and then pausing in that moment and just noticing what you've been thinking about that. So maybe my son would have a harsh word for me and I would feel very hurt. But if I stop and I just look at my thoughts, and maybe there's a whole old story going off in terms of I don't know, whatever it might be. Maybe it doesn't love me, he's not appreciative, doesn't he realize that you can't talk to people that way? That might be certain thinking that goes off in my mind. Other options might be, oh, did he not sleep well? What's happening in his life? Should I choose one of the other options, I might not feel so very hurt. Anyhow, I think those of you who also have teenagers might have your own stories in this regard. Now, we're therefore saying that our thinking can terrorize and traumatize us. I must add that I see this so often in my practice, that our thinking can have such a terrorizing effect on ourselves, on our emotional state. Often that becomes habitual. We develop certain thinking patterns that we have practiced over years, and we don't even notice how we often almost automatically go into a certain thinking pattern. And once we see the habit of that, we can also start to deal with it. Now, I like to think about the fact that our focus grows. So what I say with that is, and this has got a neurological foundation, whatever you focus on, you get more of. So, for example, thinking, or let's just say this first of course, what I focus on mostly and what I practice, I get ingrained neural pathways for, and therefore I can say that what I focus on grows. Now again, think of relationships. When you start to, in your relationship, see something that frustrates or annoys or something you're not happy with, and we start to focus on that, more often than not, we get to a point where that's all we see. Now, I also think about the fact that, of course, we want to be careful what we practice. And if we practice certain thought processes that becomes habitual, the question is that really something that I want to practice? Is that really something I want to rehearse and I want to become good at? Depending on the focus, depending on the thought processes. We have great research these days about happiness, positivity, optimism. Just for one, I'm thinking of the work of Sean Acor, and if you want to have a look at that, he's got YouTube videos, he's got a lovely book called The Happiness Advantage, and there's great research that shows us the benefits of positivity, optimism, happiness, how it affects work, how it affects physical health, etc. And so if I think about what do I want to rehearse, what do I want to practice, what focus do I want to strengthen, well, in that sense, just as one thing, I certainly would want to rather practice positivity and optimism, knowing the effect that would have on my life. We sometimes, however, practice rumination. And so, of course, when we ruminate, we're rolling something over and over and over, and usually that's a worry thing, or it's a negative thing, or it's a thing that's happened that we're not feeling good about. We also know these days that rumination is a depression driver. So again, if we become aware of what we're doing in those thought processes, we might save ourselves a lot of anguish. Thinking about fear and anxiety. When I feed my fear thoughts and I feed my anxious thoughts, that's going to grow. I will have more of that. And just thinking about that, I'll interrupt myself and just quickly say that, as we said in the first video, we get lots and lots of thinking. So we have all kinds of thinking running through our minds on a daily basis. Now, I like to think about if you watch the news, let's say BBC or whatever news, and you have that ribbon or that ticker tape at the bottom of the TV screen, and on there you have highlights and stock exchange information, etc. I think that is a good metaphor or example in terms of our thought processes. We have that running through our minds every day. And on that ticker tape is everything we've experienced before and we thought about, and movies and books and current challenges and previous challenges and anything and everything. We don't even notice, also as we said in the first video, all that thinking, because so much of it we're so good to just let go of. Now we actually habitually start to grab onto some of those thoughts. Usually or often that's fear thinking, anxiety thinking, and we get so pulled in to that particular mental construct. thinking about anxiety and how we would say that anxiety is an overestimation of danger and an underestimation of coping and resources. Again, this shows us something about our thinking. Now, what if we were to alter that equation slightly? How would we feel differently? But yet again, just simply noticing perhaps our overestimation of the danger and how it makes us feel. I think about the story of the two wolves, the old shamanic story, and many of you would know this, and often the story is also told in with various variations, but simply saying that there's this grandfather, and he had two wolves, and his little grandson came to visit him, and the two wolves started fighting, and the little boy said to the grandfather, "Granddad, which one is going to win?" And as the story goes, the grandfather said, "The one that I feed." So, again, referring to the point, are we feeding the kind of thinking that really serves us? Or are we feeding the kind of thinking that is challenging our mental wellness? Thank you for listening. More in the next video. Goodbye.